Before there was electric light, automatic buttons, or machine sewing, there was the yellowish glow of the lantern and a grandmother sitting at the table, line in hand, longing in the chest. Today you will enter a mud house with me, where every point was a secret, each cloth a memory, and the silence of the night stitched together entire generations. If this reminds you of your grandmother, from a piece embroidered with love, or a story that still pulses in your memory, like this video, subscribe to the Grandma's Diaries channel, and share with those who still believe that sewing is also praying with your hands. Prepare for the trip. Now close your eyes and listen to the hiss of the lit lamp. Smell the sweet smell of kerosene, and come with me to discover the secrets that only those who lived in that era know. Are you ready to learn how our grandmothers sewed miracles in the darkness? The light that changed everything. For as long as I can remember, sewing under the flickering light of the lamp was a ritual of concentration and affection. At that time, the kerosene lamp was the only light in the house. Its flame flickered within the glass globe, casting dancing shadows on the mud walls. It created an almost mystical atmosphere, the sacred ritual. Minutes before dusk, my grandmother would take the lantern out of the rusty metal cabinet. Carefully, he filled the kerosene tank. There was a slight hiss as the fluid reached the wick. I watched in fascination as she turned the screw until the flame gains a steady glow. The special place. I sat beside her on a low stool. That was where the real lesson in patience began. The sweet smell of kerosene mingled with the aroma of lavender, which she spread on the cloths. The first lesson. The flames flickered with small pops, and every tremor reminded me, just like sewing, life also fluctuates. But it only takes one adjustment, and we find balance again. The table of creation. Scraps of rough fabric were scattered across the worn wooden table. Colorful cheetah, durable linen, velvet inherited from festive times. My grandmother was holding a white chalk, and I drew directly on the fabric. The secrets of chalk: straight lines, discrete notes, folds, and basting stitches. Each brand came with a piece of advice. Watch where you turn, daughter. Beauty lies in the details. The stories of fabrics. While the lamp illuminated our small studio, she told us where the fabrics came from. Repairing the uniforms of soldiers passing through the village. Each memory was sewn into the fabric, and that was worth more than any pretty print. Have you ever stopped to think about the story behind each piece of clothing your grandmother kept? The weight of responsibility. When she handed me the needle, I felt the weight of responsibility. It was necessary to pierce the cloth at the exact point, pull the line firmly but without forcing, and follow the rhythm of the lamp so as not to make a mistake. Sewing was prayer. Sewing became a prayer. The lamp, a silent witness, kept the flame of tradition burning. I learned to measure line voltage by the color of the flame. The signs of the flame: if it was very yellow, it was old kerosene. It could stain the cloth. If the flame was blue, the fuel was clean, and we could sew for hours. This wisdom did not come from a manual. It came from the attentive look, of colors, of the noises, from listening. In exchange for that flickering light, we gained precision and love for the craft. The sound of the night. The hours passed slowly, and the room was filled with the rhythmic sound of the needle piercing the fabric, and the pedal of the old domestic machine. It was a sound that soothed the soul, the shelter of light. Outside, the wind was blowing, but inside, We were protected by the warm glow that united us. The first point. When my grandmother taught me the first stitches, the lamp flame was already low, hesitant, throwing shadows on the walls as if embroidering along with us. It was like sewing between ghosts of memories and the silence of time. The wisdom of the fingers. My hands were small, my eyes anxious, but she said, "It's the finger that thinks, girl. Let your eyes rest." Did you know that sewing in the dark developed a special intuition? Gradual learning. We start with the backstitch, simple lines in worn dish towels, just to learn the rhythm, the back and forth, the evolution of points. Then came the chain stitches, the full point, and finally the rococo stitch. That made me laugh just by the name. The philosophy of exploitation. The fabric was never new, almost never. We used sugar sack cloths, clean tow, already thin flannels. She said, the value is in the touch, not in price. The drawings of the soul. We embroidered flowers, rainbows, butterflies. Each point came to life under the timid glow of the lamp. The memory of the body. I learned that embroidering in dim light means trusting your body's memory. When the candle trembled, the dot followed. When the cloth wrinkled, the fingers knew how to fix it. The embroidered silence. In that embroidered silence, the world outside disappeared. All that remained was the sound of the thread passing through the cloth, and the breath of 2 generations stitching together. Have your fingers ever memorized any movements that they do automatically? The theater of the night. There was no radio, no television, just the lantern. In the evenings, we sat at the sewing table, and my grandmother would start telling stories. The magical stories. Some made up, others inherited. They all took on magical contours under the yellowish glow of the lantern. Each piece we sewed came with an embroidered story. Memories in cloths. Cousin Rosinia's quilt had a blue square, which resembled the dress from the First Communion. Aunt Marlene's apron was made from cloth from the last fair before the drought. The special dishcloths, the dish towels embroidered with chickens, were reminiscent of the ones we raised in the backyard. Noisy, sacred as village. Stories from the interior. While the stitches were being formed, she told stories from the countryside. The day a calf entered the church during Mass. The night the groom switched places with the priest just to get out of the wedding. The protective great-grandmother, or the great-grandmother who used invisible red thread to protect her children. The sewing became a stage. The cloth gained characters. The point gained soul. The construction of identity. And each story I heard also shaped my identity. There, in the glow of the lamp, I didn't just learn to sew. I learned to remember. I learned to dream. What stories did your family tell while doing crafts? The mistakes that became art. Not everything went as planned. Sometimes the stitch would get crooked. The basting was slipping. The line got tangled up completely. But my grandmother never called it a mistake. I tested combinations. France here, adjusted there. The philosophy of reinvention. She said, just change the design. And we changed. A crooked embroidery turned into an open flower. A tear in the fabric became a frame. The stains that became art. A stain of kerosene turned into a shadow embroidered with dark thread. That's how I learned to respect improvisation. Sewing was not following a risk. It was about knowing how to reinvent yourself. In that house lit by a tired lamp, I saw the most beautiful pieces born from the most unexpected mistakes. My grandmother used to tell me, there are people who see defects. I see history. Each botched stitch was just the beginning of a new idea. And this is how I understood it. Beauty lives in the imperfect details. Even a crooked line can lead us to the right path. Have you ever turned a mistake into something even more beautiful? There was a year when the village fair seemed to be the only relief, for so much hardness in the chest and so little food on the plate. For that occasion, my grandmother decided to sew a party dress for me. We didn't have any new fabric, not even a fine line, but we had creativity, courage, and the lantern. She rummaged through the wooden chest. He took out pieces of cloth that had been carefully stored. Aunt's floral cheetah skirt, scraps of a blue sheet that no longer covered anyone, and a piece of beige lace, yellowed with time. At the table, she put the dress together like a puzzle. Every point had intention, everything done with the delicacy of a craftsman and the silent affection of a grandmother. The sewing took 2 weeks, always at night, always under the same lamp. With each point, anxiety grew within me. The dress was taking shape. Puff sleeves. He lined up each fold like someone lining up a memory. On the night of the party, I wore the dress, and even without a mirror, I felt like a queen of the countryside. Because in that piece of cloth embroidered by the light of the lamp, there was not only thread, there was waiting, there was love, there was memory. Do you have any piece of clothing that was made especially for you with a lot of love? The presence of silence. Silence has always been part of sewing. Between one point and another, sometimes not a word was spoken. Just the sound of the cloth being pulled, of the knot being tightened, from a sigh contained in the chest. The full void, the silence in the lamplight was not empty. It was presence. There lived my grandmother's silent prayers, her thoughts while embroidering, mine too. The sounds of the night. It was in the silence that I heard the sound of the night, the croaking of frogs, the distant cry of the ox cart, the beating of wings of some nocturnal bird. All of this was embroidered with us. The stitched world. It was as if the whole world was sewn together there, in that old cloth that was transformed. The silent longing. It was in the silence that I realized how much I missed my grandmother. She never said, but his points slowed down when he talked about my grandfather. Firmer when I sewed something for him. The heart lines. Each line was a memory, pulled straight from the chest. There, between the dot and the silence, was where everything lived. Have you ever felt how silence can be more eloquent than any words? The farewell ritual. As the night wore on and the lamp began to dim, she taught me the final ritual. Extinguish the flame with respect. Cover the globe with your hands. Gently loosen the wick. Never let the lamp go out on its own, she said. It's like hope. If you're not careful, it will go out without warning. As we put the lantern away in the dark closet, our hands were still warm. The flame went out, but the memory of that glow remained lit inside. And even later, when I sewed in the dark, I was guided by the memory of that light. The light of the lamp that sewed more than fabrics. I sewed bows. Sewing in dim light required more than technique. It required sensitivity. And this sensitivity passed from grandmother to granddaughter, like an invisible line that never breaks. What special tradition did someone in your family pass on to you? If this story took you back in time, to the flickering glow of the lamp, to a towel embroidered with longing, or the sound of the needle piercing the cloth in silence, you are not alone in this nostalgia. Like this video if you also remember the smell of kerosene mixed with lavender. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diaries channel to receive heartwarming stories every day. And tell me in the comments, what was the most special piece someone sewed for you? Or better yet, do you still have any pieces made by lamplight stored in your closet? Tomorrow I'll tell you about a recipe that didn't contain sugar, flour, or milk, but it was capable of sweetening the most bitter heart. a recipe my great-grandmother used to cure fights between neighbors, and that saved more than one marriage in our family. It's a story that will make you believe that some recipes cure more than hunger. They heal the soul. Until tomorrow, may your line never break, and may your memory never fade. Because every stitch we make in life sews together who we are, and every story we keep embroiders our identity. A tight hug to your heart.